Hey everyone, welcome back to Life Coach Lifestyle. In today's video, we're diving into an essential topic that affects anyone dealing with debt, the debt time clock. Whether it's an oral agreement, a written contract, a promissory note, or an open-ended account. Knowing how long debt stays enforceable is critical for your financial health. Let's break it down. So what exactly is the debt time clock? It's all about the statute of limitations, which is the legal time frame creditors have to sue you over unpaid debts. Once this clock runs out, they lose their right to take you to court to force repayment. And this is important, the debt doesn't disappear. It still exists, and creditors may still try to collect. It's just no longer legally enforceable in court. This is why it's critical to understand how different types of debt agreements work and how the statute of limitations applies to each. Let's start with oral contracts. These are verbal agreements between two people, nothing written, no formal documentation. A classic example could be borrowing $500 from a friend with a promise to pay it back in 6 months. Because there's no written proof, oral contracts are harder to enforce in court. That's why the statute of limitations is usually shorter, typically ranging from 2 to 5 years, depending on your state. But here's the catch: if the other party has some form of evidence like witnesses, emails, or text messages discussing the agreement, it might still hold up in court. So while oral contracts seem informal, they're not entirely free of accountability. Written contracts are far more formal and include any agreement where terms are clearly spelled out and signed by both parties. Think about a lease agreement, a car loan, or even an installment payment plan. These are easier to enforce because there's tangible proof of the agreement. The statute of limitations for written contracts is longer, ranging from 3 to 10 years in most states. Remember, always keep a copy of any written contract you sign. If a dispute arises or you're approached about an old debt, having your records could make all the difference. Next, we have promissory notes. This is a specific type of written agreement where you promise to pay back a certain amount of money, often with interest. For example, student loans and mortgages typically fall under this category. They're more formal than regular written contracts because they often include detailed repayment terms and interest calculations. The statute of limitations for promissory notes is usually 3 to 15 years, depending on the state and type of loan. If you have a mortgage or student loan, knowing this time frame is crucial because it can have significant financial and legal implications. Finally, we have open-ended accounts. These are revolving credit agreements, like credit cards or lines of credit, where you can borrow, repay, and borrow again up to your credit limit. The statute of limitations for open-ended accounts is often 3 to 6 years, but this varies depending on your state. Here's an important tip: if you make a payment on an old credit card debt, or even acknowledge it in writing, it could restart the clock. So if you're dealing with an old debt, don't take action without understanding how it might impact the statute of limitations. Before we wrap up, let's clear up a few common myths about debt time clocks. Myth: debts disappear after the statute of limitations expires. In fact, the debt is still there, it's just unenforceable in court. Creditors can still try to collect, and it might remain on your credit report for up to 7 years. Myth: making a payment always helps reduce debt issues. In fact, not necessarily. Making a payment on a time-barred debt could restart the clock, giving creditors more time to sue you. Myth: statutes of limitations are the same everywhere. In fact, they vary by state and by debt type. For example, in California, the statute for written contracts is 4 years, but in New York, it's 6 years. Here are some quick tips to help you manage debt effectively. Check your state laws. Websites like your state attorney general's office or consumer protection agencies provide reliable info on statutes of limitations. Don't ignore collection notices. If you receive one, verify whether the debt is still within the enforceable time frame. Avoid verbal agreements whenever possible. Get everything in writing to avoid misunderstandings. Consult professionals. If you're unsure about your rights or obligations, consider consulting a financial advisor or attorney who specializes in debt issues. Understanding the debt time clock empowers you to make informed financial decisions and protect yourself from unfair practices. If this video helped you, give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need this information. Don't forget to subscribe to Life Coach Lifestyle and hit the bell icon for more financial insights every week. Have questions about debt? Drop them in the comments, and I might feature your question in our next video. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay financially savvy.